heart of Hawkeye Nation comes the show that dissects the plays, debates the calls, and celebrates the victories. This isn't just a podcast. This is your unfiltered access to the mind of two diehard fans. They live and breathe black and gold, and they're here to give you the honest, raw takes you won't find anywhere else. Get ready for deep dive analysis, passionate debate, and a unique perspective on the team you love. This is Punting is Winning with JD and Keith.
Welcome back, Hawkeye sports fans, to another episode of Punting is Winning, the All Iowa podcast. We are your hosts. He's JD. I'm Keith. Welcome back to, technically, I guess, week 7, even though it's week 6 for Iowa. This last week was week 6 for Iowa. Good showing up in Madison this weekend. We'll get into that. First, let's take care of some business from last week. Last week's question of the week was how much will Mark Gronowski play and how much do you think he'll play? I don't know that anybody really answered that question either. I think it's just kind of subjective to what your feelings were. I kind of figured he was going to start based on what I was hearing out of there this week, and probably didn't expect him to go the entire game. I also didn't expect the game to go quite like it did either. But he definitely was not 100%. You could tell, his running was a little ginger, so to speak, and but he was still effective. 17 of 24, not a lot of yards, but pretty good completion percentage. And really, there wasn't a ton of yards to be had in a lot of those possessions because Iowa took over in plus territory a lot of places with turnovers and turnover on downs. There really wasn't too many long drives that they had to sustain. So,
yeah, the one that I was really kind of surprised about was the one before the end of the first half.
Yeah, I was too.
With very little time left. It's like Kamari Moulton put him on his shoulders and said, "Hey guys, we're going to go down and get at least 3 points out of this deal. We're going to drive down with little time, and we're going to get points." It's like he just willed Iowa to that 3 points. The way he ran hard, the way he found the holes, and just kind of took control of the situation, and that was really, really refreshing to see.
Yeah, it was interesting to see Iowa with a 2-minute offense.
Yeah. They hadn't seen that for a while.
We'll get into that here. Let's get question of the week for this week out of the way. I think you had something.
Yeah, I just come up with something quick here. How will the players of Penn State react to the firing of James Franklin? How will they come into Iowa City? Will they come in dejected? And I doubt that you'll ever see that from them, but they may mentally feel like that. Or will they just rally behind the interim coach, Terry Smith? It's hard to say how a team, especially wounded like that, when they're coming in on a three losses in a row on the road, tough environment, night game, pretty tough to come in and play in situations like that after your coach gets fired. And not only that, but you lost your starting quarterback. There's a lot right there to have to deal with. We'll see how they react to it.
And I feel like it would probably be easier to rally behind a new coach if that wasn't a long tenured coach that they just fired. If James Franklin was like third year in or something and they fired him, okay, you've got guys that are, have played their entire careers for one guy. When you get somebody that's been in there for 6, 7, 8 years now, it's got to be difficult on those guys as they process that hey, this guy brought me in and he believed in me, and I don't know who this new guy is going to be. I don't know. Maybe he's part of the staff. I don't know. I didn't pay attention to that, but does he believe in me the same way that the coach that recruited me or brought me in? It could go either way. I feel like this is a team that had national championship aspirations, and those are completely out the window now. They've lost their quarterback. I feel this is a wounded duck that's coming in that's probably ready to roll over and just get it over with. But I could be wrong.
That's the question, is how they're going to come in. If they're going to roll over and just get the season through, they've gotten really in their minds, maybe they don't have what they were, their goals are no longer available to them. They could still make a bowl game. If that's what their consolation prize, so to speak, is for them. I know there's a lot of teams out there that love to go to a bowl game that may not get to go to one.
Yeah.
But for the expectations of what Penn State was up against at the beginning of the year, a lot of people had them number 1 or number 2. A lot of publications had them 2. And then to go out and right now they're 0-3 in the conference.
And
And
lost
reeling.
Traditionally the 2 worst teams in the conference, maybe not two of the worst teams in the conference. Now, not to say that Northwestern at 4-2 doesn't look better, and certainly UCLA looks better.
Yeah.
But still not, we're not talking like you lost to Indiana, you lost to Ohio State, you lost to Michigan 3 games in a row. That's got to be difficult, and it's got to be at some point you're like, we're 0-3 and we lost to traditionally 2 of the worst teams in the conference. I give up.
Especially
I don't know.
At home, one of them.
2 of them.
Yeah.
Well, two of their losses at home. The Oregon.
Well,
game.
yeah, the Oregon game was.
Yeah,
I give them a pass on that.
story.
That's a good team. So yeah, I give them a pass on that one. But
well, let's talk a little bit about the Wisconsin game first, and then we'll get into more of that Penn State.
Sure.
I did not get to watch the game live. I was out of town and had to watch it yesterday. But I already knew the result, and I kind of kept an eye on it on my phone as well. This is probably by far one of the worst Wisconsin teams I've ever seen. And I think somebody said it really well. This Wisconsin team reminds them of the 22-23 Iowa team. Maybe not as good as that 22-23 Iowa team, because that team had a stellar defense, and Wisconsin's just got a decent defense. I don't think that's near up to Wisconsin standards.
Right.
I think Iowa just pretty much imposed their will on them and leaned on them all game long, and they just were far, far, far more physical than Wisconsin was. I think Wisconsin kind of poked the bear a little bit to begin with. You get that unsportsmanlike conduct penalty in the pregame. You're just, if you're coming in wounded like that, and you know that you're probably not up to the caliber of your competition, I don't know that I would give them a whole lot of motivation to want to whoop me that bad. And, because I already had the motivation of we did 42 push-ups because you scored 42 points. Iowa never scores 42. I think you can flush that Iowa offense right out the window at this point. Yeah, the yardage is not great, still from a passing aspect. But Iowa's averaging over 30 points a game. They're averaging 30 points a game in conference play, which is higher than Oregon. I think that's an old, worn-out joke of, well, if Iowa's offense puts up 30 points on you, you're bad. Well, I think that's a different story now that you've got a new offensive coordinator in there who, it's 2 years in a row that we've averaged over 30 points a game. We weren't even averaging 20 points a game under Brian Ferentz. So yeah, you could say it then. I don't think you've got the right to say it now. I think, the passing game's not there, but it hasn't needed to be. It's been complementary. It's not been necessity. And, like I said, 17-24 is pretty decent passing. Yeah, 107 yards, but again, short fields. When you're, what did they have? 5 drives that were under 50 yards? Kind of difficult to rack up yardage in there, and you still were efficient, and you still scored points. That's, you had a 1-yard drive in one, and you had a 22-yard drive in another, and I think, like you said, the most impressive was the end of half, 95, or started at the 5-yard line, 6-yard line, something like that. Drove right down and got a field goal out of it. Something you would never have expected out of an Iowa team, and certainly not one that had, let's be honest, when Iowa kicked the field goal to go up 3-0, they truly had enough to beat Wisconsin at that point. I saw a Wisconsin team that midway through a third quarter just basically trying to run the ball just to get out of there so they could run the clock, is what it felt like to me. Again, we knew going in that this was not a very good Wisconsin team, and this was a daunting schedule for them anyway.
Right.
I don't see them winning another game. Maybe Minnesota, but I doubt it. Their offense is terrible.
I don't know if it comes down to whether they'll win another game. It's a lot of them are questioning whether they score a touchdown or anything in the next six games. Because right now,
6.7 or 6.7 points per game in Big Ten conference play.
Yeah, and I don't see it getting better with their schedule.
No.
And I didn't pull their schedule up, but I know that Ohio State is next.
Ohio State's next.
And then you've got Indiana on there, Oregon, and Illinois, Minnesota yet. So I know there's another one in there. I don't think they've already played Michigan. They played Michigan before they played Iowa.
Who is the other one that's in there?
I don't know. It's not one that they're probably going to win.
Was it Penn State?
I'm not sure. It could be.
It might have been Penn State.
It could be. Yeah. But I just feel like right now, Wisconsin's a team that just lacks an identity. They're kind of like Iowa, like you said. That I agree with that. We talked about last week that their rush defense was pretty good. It was in the top 10 in the nation.
It was number 6.
And Iowa gashed them like pretty hard. I mean, I don't think that they expected Iowa to run on them quite like they did. And that is a testament to the offensive line and how they were moving the defensive line. That's what Wisconsin all year last year, when they got done getting beat by Iowa in Iowa City 42-10, that lit a fire under them. And I know that they were sitting there just putting an emphasis on this game the whole year, the whole off season. Like you said, the 42 push-ups, the staying late after, there's other things that they were like 4-2. I don't remember exactly what they were doing, but this was the game that they had circled, and they had it circled many, many times, that they were going to try to this is, I think, the game that they want to judge what they're about against. And, they gave up 42 last year. They gave up 37 this year. The problem was last year they scored 10. This year they didn't score any.
Yeah, they gave up less points this year, but got beat by more.
Exactly. So, I mean, at that point, if you're a Wisconsin, and I don't want to beat this dead horse too much because I want to look forward, not so much back, but if you're Wisconsin, do you let Luke Fickell finish the season, or do you just say we're going to part ways now and move on and try to get some hope left in the season that we can compete, even though their schedule is daunting? There is no doubt about it. It is difficult as it gets. I think they looked at this Iowa game as a game that they could have possibly stolen. Yeah. And they didn't. They were so disappointed, I think, at the end of this. I watched a few of the Wisconsin podcasts, the on Wisconsin stuff, the 24/7 Wisconsin stuff, the same basic general ideas podcasts that they have for Iowa, but they have them for Wisconsin and all the other teams. And I watched a few of them, and they were just absolutely floored. They just couldn't say enough bad things about how the Wisconsin team they had a year to get this thing figured out. They had a year to go up against Iowa, 42-10. They just kept pounding that over and over and over again. They're a dejected fan base right now. And personally, I'm not sure what you do. Do you finish out the season, pay a little bit less to Fickell because he finishes out the season? Or do you just cut ties now and pay him and move on? I'm not sure.
I think if I'm the administrator, and I'm going to bring up a couple of points. First of all, that 42-10 was overemphasized. I think that was overemphasized simply because Iowa was not an offensive juggernaut. So allowing Iowa to score 42 points was an anomaly. That was just, but how many times did Iowa score 40 points last year? 5 times, or 4 times last year and 1 more this year. Well, actually, yeah, just the 1 time this year.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think that is where you start to throw out that, Iowa's offense is 3 downs and punt. If you get 30 punts instead of 30 points, you can throw that out. That's an old clip. That's an old joke now. That I don't think that applies as much. Yeah, 15 points against Indiana, but look, Oregon only scored 20 at home. And Oregon's supposed to be a high-powered offense, and they only scored 20 at home. We scored 15. Now, granted, yes, 2 of those 15 were on an intentional safety, but still, yeah, the yardage isn't there, but it's complementary. And going back to a couple of things you said earlier about, I talked about how Iowa and Wisconsin were kind of mirror images of each other from a couple of years ago. Wisconsin's kind of that Iowa of 2 years ago. The difference between that is Iowa knows that there's 3 phases of the game: offense, defense, special teams. Iowa was elite in 2 of those and terrible in 1. Wisconsin's not elite in any of them.
Right.
So if you're not elite in any one of those 3, there's really no comparison. I mean, you're talking the difference between a 2-10 team and an 8-4 team that can mask those weaknesses by being elite elsewhere. Wisconsin can't do that. Now, going back to your point of, do you cut ties with him now? I think if I'm administration, I look at that and I say, it doesn't matter if I fire him now or if I fire him at the end of the year. My record's going to be the same. So I'm going to save myself a little bit of money.
Yeah.
I'm just going to wait, fire him at the end of the year.
Yeah. I don't think you're going to bring in, I don't even think if you were to say, hey, we're going to cut ties and bring in Urban Meyer at this point, I don't think it'll matter.
No.
It won't matter. It's going to be.
The talent's not there. The schedule is too daunting. Maybe you win 1 game if you bring in somebody new, but what's that get you? It gets you a 3-9 season as opposed to a 2-10.
Right.
Does that really matter?
They got problems
and
far beyond their schedule.
The problem was Luke Fickell's not a bad coach, but what he tried to do was strip an identity from a team and rebuild it with something that he wanted. And he totally, it's like taking a Mustang, stripping it down, and trying to make it into a Mustang GT, but you don't have the parts to do it. Now all you've got is a frame that looks like crap and isn't functional. That's exactly how their football team is. It's not that he's a bad coach, because he proved at Cincinnati he can coach.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get those, like they said on that broadcast, you're not going to get those 6'3", 6'4", 4'4", 40 wide receivers to come want to play in the cold in Wisconsin. They would rather play in the warmth of Alabama or Tennessee or Oklahoma. They don't want to go to Wisconsin. Now, yeah, some will, some that are from the area, but there's just not enough. And those that have that are the cold weather teams or cold weather players are probably going more to like a Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. They're not going to Wisconsin over those unless they're a homegrown Wisconsin kid who's grown up a Badger fan their entire life. Otherwise, they're going to bigger schools. So
yeah,
the philosophy just doesn't work.
One of the things I think that really is kind of, if you look at the issues that Iowa had from 22 and 23, and you look at the same thing at Wisconsin right now, is they have an issue at quarterback. And that quarterback, that is one position that is uber important. That is the most important position on the field.
Efficiency there.
So, yeah, when Iowa had issues with their quarterback that couldn't make a throw down the field without bouncing it or throwing it over somebody's head, same thing applies with Wisconsin. Their starting quarterback, this Billy Edwards Jr. that came in from, I believe it was Maryland. And they expected him to be able to go out. And he wasn't a bad quarterback at Maryland. He could throw the ball and complete passes. He's a little bit better. He's kind of like one of them Ethan Kaliak-Manis types, He's not flashy, but he'll get the job done. And then he goes out and gets hurt in the first or second game of the season. And he hasn't called it a season yet, but I think he's probably should if he was smart and try to get a red shirt. Yeah, he might get a red shirt if he stays. I mean, if he calls it. That way he can come back next year.
And you mentioned it, that Iowa had terrible quarterback play, but Iowa had fantastic running back play. I don't see that out of Wisconsin yet either. I mean, their running backs were. I mean, that Dylan Jones was pretty decent. He had a good burst.
He ran hard.
but they didn't stick with him.
One of the things too I wanted to mention real quick is that the undisciplined. We talked about Maryland always being undisciplined. I think Wisconsin was undisciplined the other night. No clearer than the fact that when Iowa comes swarming out, that you had a Wisconsin player all on his own. I'm sure he wasn't told to, but one of the things that you got to remember too is that Wisconsin put so much emphasis on this game that they talked about Iowa week, getting everything, 42 push-ups, all the stuff that we talked about earlier. They had these kids to a frazzy. I mean, they were just frazzied up. They were ready to go. And this kid, for whatever reason, unknown to most people, just decided to go out there and just start
trying to pick a fight.
Yeah, trying to do something that he just I couldn't. As a logical human being, I scratch my head because I'm trying to think why he would do that, and immediately get a 15-yard penalty. Iowa, they had to. Was it Iowa received? So they had to kick the ball from like the 35-yard or 30-yard line, whatever it was, 25-yard line.
He kicked from the 20.
20, all right, the 20-yard line. And that just automatically gave, Iowa a good field. Obviously, they didn't do anything with it that first drive with 3 and out. And then later on, they had a couple of other unsportsmanlike penalties, some personal foul stuff. So you got to clean those things up. If you're a team that's struggling right now, you have to do all the little things correct to even stay in games. I don't see them staying in the game with Ohio State. This is going to get ugly early. The only saving grace is it is in Camp Randall, so I don't know if that's worth anything at this point.
Iowa just beat them 37-0. I mean,
yeah,
in Camp Randall. So I think this isn't the typical Badger that's backed into a corner, wounded, trying to fight its way out. This is one that's cowering, hoping that the season just gets over at this point. You've got to think that, because they've got to look at that schedule and say, there's no way we're beating Ohio State, Oregon,
on the road,
Indiana. And going back to a point I made earlier about the kids not wanting to play in a cold weather environment. I know some people are going to say, well, but Indiana's getting kids like that. Well, Indiana's got this too, that Ohio State or that Wisconsin doesn't have. Indiana's got the big donor money that's why that football program turned around so quick, is they were able to go out and get, they did what Ohio State does. They spend their $10 or $20 million on their roster. And again, a lot of those kids came from smaller schools too, but there's only so many roster spots for kids. So, and you've got a lot of kids that are overlooked that go to smaller schools that are just, we had that kid from Troy 2 years ago that I think he's at Penn State now, but, as a small school kid that was just absolutely phenomenal against Iowa. Now, I don't know what he's done at Penn State. I don't follow that, but there's a lot of smaller school kids that are very, very good that can play at the Division I FBS level in a Power 4 school and be successful. And Indiana knew exactly what they wanted, and they went out and they bought it. They paid for it, and they're reaping the rewards for it. So I don't think, if you want to bring that up as a barometer of what, well, Indiana did it, why can't Wisconsin? Well, Indiana's got the money to do it.
Yeah.
Big difference.
Yeah. One thing I do want to say is I really enjoyed watching the Wisconsin with their throwback jerseys and that W on the side of their helmet instead of the regular W, instead of the one that looks like it's in motion or whatever. I kind of like that. I think they should go back to that and stay with that. That's classier to me.
Yeah, if I remember right, the years that Wisconsin wore those uniforms originally, I think they were 0-12-1 against Iowa in those years.
So yeah, let's keep it.
Yeah,
I say let's make sure that they keep that for the next 50 years.
The one thing I would nitpick on, just maybe a little bit from that game, that the defense played great, but still missing tackles on,
there were some
where
tackles
where they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
They've got to get that cleaned up. Otherwise, the good teams are going to take advantage of it. That's where, missed tackles cost them 3 points against Indiana. You couldn't bring the kid down at after a 2-yard gain, you let him get 15, and well, then they opened up the rest of the half for him. Now, granted, we've covered that as to the gift of the roughing the passer call on that, but that killed him last year in games against Michigan State and UCLA, missed tackles. They cannot have that keep continuing going forward. Now, it was less prevalent this game, and I think you can get away with it more with this game because you're talking about a dysfunctional offense anyway. But you're not going to get away with it against a lot of teams, so they got to get that cleaned up. But if that's the only nit that I need to pick in this game, that's great.
Well, I'm not going to nitpick anything, but I wanted to say a few things about, we talked about Wisconsin and having the identity issues and all that stuff. And we haven't really talked much about Iowa other than the drive that at the right before the half. But let's talk about the 2 interceptions by defensive linemen. Mm-hmm. You don't see that come around every day. That's just an oddity that just doesn't happen. How about the fact that Iowa hadn't shut Wisconsin out in Camp Randall since 1929?
Yeah.
And the last time Iowa actually shut them out was in 1980. That would have been at Iowa City. Oh, maybe that was the last time they were shut out, and the last time Iowa shut them out was in 96 at Camp Randall. That's what it was.
Shut out in Camp Randall.
Yeah, that's right. I knew I was getting them wrong.
And that was Ohio State beat them 21-0 or something like that. 23-0, maybe.
Could be, but there were some things that just were kind of oddities that happened. Drew Stevens 3 for 3 on field goals. That was nice to see. All 3 of them were right down the middle. After missing against Indiana, there was always that little, is he all right? Is he okay? I mean, we kind of expect him to be perfect. I know that he's a human being. I get that things, don't always go great with the snap to the center, from the center back, and then the hold isn't always perfect. But we kind of expect that as a fan base, that they will convert that virtually every time. But there's a lot that goes into it that we don't realize. So
I know a lot of people were down on him for that too, and he shouldn't show his face in Iowa City. You know what? That's really stupid to say, considering the fact that I could see you made a little bit of that mentality had that been a field goal that actually cost them the game, but it didn't.
Right.
So, it's a missed field goal. Okay, so we lose by 2 instead of 5. Big whoop.
Well, I don't know if we want to drop back
Maybe
2 weeks and go back to Indiana.
But I don't know.
But, I thought I was happy with the defense overall. Yes, there were some missed tackles, things that I thought, they need to get that cleaned up, just like you said. I agree with that. I thought the punting game was fine. Nothing spectacular, but he didn't need to be. Dropped 2 inside the 20. Great short field. The one time he did have the opportunity to completely blast one and see how far he can punt it, I think he got it. I don't know if it was 43 yards. I don't think he hit it right the way he wanted to, because I know he can kick further than that.
Yeah, it was right on his average, if I remember right.
Caden Weegan, it seemed like they wanted to go to him early, and when Iowa had a 17-point lead at the end of the first quarter, I think that game plan was no longer needed. So they just went ahead and just basically ran the ball and just said, we're going to salt this away. And if we score touchdowns, we score touchdowns. Welcome back, Xavier Williams, by the way. Mm-hmm. Nice to see him. And then get 2 touchdowns on top of that. Mark Gronowski extending his touchdown rushing streak to, whatever it was at South Dakota, add 6 to Iowa. Because I know he's rushed. I know he's rushed one in every game this year.
Was that Indiana one? Was
yeah, he got it. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. He's got a rushing touchdown in every game this year, and I don't know how many he had
8
prior.
He's got 8 rushing touchdowns on the.
I know he had 2 against. I don't remember if it was. Was it Rutgers? Okay, yeah, probably. So yeah, a lot of good things out of this game. When you win 37-0 and the other team barely even crosses the 50-yard line, pretty good night. pretty good night. So, the wife and I set out on the pad in front of the garage, projected the game onto the garage door, and we just enjoyed the evening, wrapped up in blankets because it was still a little cool yet. But a great night, and hopefully we can continue this with Penn State. We'll talk about them maybe here, and
we can transition right into
Penn State. Okay, one of the things about Penn State, those that don't know and don't follow that well. Penn State won their first 3 non-conference games, and it was I've got that right here: Nevada, Florida International University, and Villanova, and that was pretty convincing on those 3: 46-11, 34-0, 52-6. But then they got into Big Ten play, and they opened with Oregon, and they lost in double overtime, 30-24. Then they went out to UCLA, which is, anytime you travel across the country, we just seem to have that problem. A lot of teams do. Iowa had that problem last year. You go out to UCLA, a team that had not led a game all year, and you give up 27 in the first half, and they're down 27-7. You end up losing 42-37. But still a loss, kind of unexpected. And you come home and you think, okay, we're going to right the ship. We got Northwestern in. Northwestern is not a traditional powerhouse in the Big Ten. And you go out and you lose 22-21. And you lose your quarterback on one of the last plays of the game.
Yep.
It's just, it seems like everything kind of happened all at once against them. And then you find out, you wake up after Northwestern game. Next morning, you find out midday that your coach has been fired. And everything's all up in arms and nobody knows what's going on. And I did watch a little bit of the press conference with the AD today.
Mm-hmm. And
I'm going to tell you what, that guy's a guy that is a fiery individual, and he wants to win championships, and there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And that's something that I would like to see, coming out of Iowa City, is winning national championships and talk about winning national championships, where this guy that was his thing. My whole goal is to win championships here, national championships. And we are, Penn State, and we expect excellence. And, that was, and the guy looks like Matt Rule. Have you seen him? My God, he could be. I thought he was Matt Rule. When he walked up there, I'm like, what's Matt Rule doing? And I'm Penn State already.
No, they're like best buddies.
His name is Pat, I believe. And he's the AD there. But, so I got to thinking to myself, how is Iowa going to be able to win this game on Saturday night? And I thought, Penn State's got this, at the beginning of the season, this vaunted defense that was so good from last year. How is Iowa going to win this game? How is Iowa going to advance the ball on Penn State? So I got to look into a couple things, and I've got some stats here for you. I think Iowa's going to be able to rush the ball, and that plays right into Iowa's hands. And the reason I say that is because I will give you some stats. Against Nevada, they were pretty stingy, 78 yards defense. They only allowed 78. Penn State allowed 78 yards against Nevada. Rushing only. Now, this is only rushing stats. I'm not talking about passing at all. Then the next week with Florida International, they gave up 141 to Florida International. 34-0, and they still gave up 141. Then they have Villanova, and they gave up a paltry 83. So, in the before conference season and in the non-conference season, they gave up an average of 100.67 yards per game on the ground. Now let's transition to the Big Ten. Oregon rushed for 176 yards against Penn State. Now that, granted, 2 overtimes, I get it. But a lot of times in overtime, there's not a lot of rushing, it's a lot of throwing. So, you can take some of that with a grain of salt. So then you go out and you fly out after a loss to Oregon, 30-24. You fly out to UCLA. You think, well, we're going to right the ship. They give up 269 yards rushing to UCLA. A team that's not traditionally known for their rushing, maybe back in the 80s and early 80s and mid 80s.
Yeah.
They were pretty good. Eric was it Barrick Ball and some of them that were really good. Then they come home and they're like, well, we're going to get Northwestern. They're not going to run on us. Northwestern ran for 119, which is not a lot, but that's more than you'd expect. I expected Northwestern maybe rush for 80, 75.
Northwestern threw the ball pretty effectively against
They
them too.
did throw the ball effectively. Now, when you add in, I'm just talking now. These are the last 3 games in conference. They have averaged given up 188 yards per game, rushing. When you add up all 6 games, they're averaging giving up 144.3 yards rushing. This plays into Iowa's hands because Iowa is an excellent rushing game, has excellent rushing game. So, in my opinion, Iowa will have to throw the ball, obviously, because I think Penn State will gear up to try to stop Iowa's rushing game. So they will have to throw the ball. But I believe that there's just glaring weaknesses here for their defense. I think they give up way too many yards rushing, and I think Iowa's a good enough offensive line and a good enough offense that they will be able to exploit the rushing. I don't think Penn State's going to have, and I know they've had some injuries, I don't think they're going to have the wherewithal to stop Iowa rushing. Now they might occasionally, get us behind the line or we, bust a play up, that kind of thing. And I think Iowa will have to throw to maybe open up the rush a little bit early. And I think that's a good idea. But I think later on, if Iowa was able to get a lead with Iowa's elite defense and Penn State throwing in a young quarterback who has not played a lot in Ethan Grunkmeyer, especially not in a hostile environment. I've got his stats here too. He's 8 of 11 for 105 yards and 1 TD. Now, the only times that he played against Nevada, and he was 7 of 9 for 86 yards. Oh, I got that right here. Yeah, he was 7 of 9 for 86 yards against Nevada, and he was 1 of 2 for 19 yards and a TD against Villanova. That's his only experience this year. So he's going to be, well, he did have some handoffs against Northwestern after Drew Aller got hurt. So really, but he didn't throw the ball. So right now he's unproven. He does have talent. They say he's actually a very talented quarterback. He just has to, he was just behind Drew Aller, and rightfully so. So we'll see what we'll get with Ethan Grunkmeyer, I think his name, redshirt freshman. So this will be probably the guy going forward for them in the next few years. So we may see him again at some point if he doesn't transfer, barring a new coaching issue. So, hey, we've got a lot of things going for us this year, this week. Yeah. Your thoughts?
I like the fact that it's a backup QB. Last time Penn State had a backup QB in Iowa City, it didn't go so well for him.
Right.
You saw Fernando Mendoza, who is not a backup QB for Indiana, really didn't light the world on fire at Kinnick. Right. That crowd, I think, had an effect on them. That's going to be a really big tell for me is what's it going to be like the first time that kid faces some adversity when he's down in that south end zone, or that the north end zone,
and it's loud,
and it gets loud.
All right.
What's he going to do? Now, if he comes out there and it doesn't affect him, then I'm like, oh, we got a problem.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening. I don't think we've made many a good quarterback look pedestrian due to that crowd and that noise. So I look for more of the same. I'm not even going to make a prediction on the game because I quit doing that because last time I did it, we didn't fare so well. So I'm not going to do that. But this is a very, very winnable game.
Yeah.
And it still would be, I guess based on how the season would finish, it's still a very quality win. I mean, they may be struggling right now, but it's still Penn State. It's still there's still talent there. Mm-hmm. So, I think you can't take them lightly. You cannot go out there and think, well, they just fired the coach. This is a lame duck. They were national championship hopefuls, and now that's off the table. They're just going to roll over. That's not going to happen. So you still have to play with the intensity and the way you would have normally played.
Right.
But I think, like you said, I think the signs are in Iowa's favor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I just, you talk about a wounded team, and this is definitely a wounded team coming into Iowa City, but a wounded snake still bites. So, you got to be careful, because if you come into thinking that this is going to be, we're going to be able to take and just impose our will upon Penn State, I think you're mistaken. There's still some very good, talented, very, very talented players. This is not a team that was, they were number 2 in the nation coming in. And I realize that preseason doesn't mean a lot. But I think when they lost to Oregon, I think it just took so much out of them. And then to have to travel the next week, go to across the nation, it was just a lot. It's hard to come back points. From. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, granted, the quality of the competition of some of those teams is not the highest. But
look at what UCLA did. We'll transition into the landscape of college football. Look at what UCLA look what UCLA did to Michigan State up there. That was a butt kicking. That was just a flat out, just like an Iowa-Wisconsin game. I don't think that at any point Michigan State was in that game.
Yeah. And that made me thinking about a little bit of something earlier of how many coaches in the Big Ten are going to be gone by the end of the year. And I have a feeling there's going to be 4 new coaching positions in the Big Ten. 2 of them already happened with Penn State and UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan State and Wisconsin are the other 2.
I would be a little surprised about the Michigan State, since it's Jonathan Smith's only his 2nd year. I'd be a little nervous about making that statement, because I think they're more apt to give him the benefit of the doubt and give him some time to work through some issues. I think they're having problems with Aiden Childs. I think he's a good quarterback. He's a dynamic. They've got to figure out a way to rein him in a little bit, because I think he's like a wild horse. He wants to run. He wants to do everything he can do, but I think he does it recklessly. And he's the kind of guy that you need to really pull him back and just make him, instead of a thrower and a runner, make him into an actual quarterback. And I think he'd be really good. But, that's up to the coaching staff to get figured out. And, if they can't, then that kind of falls on them.
And there's merit to that. Him being a decent, he's a good coach. Just look at what Oregon State's done since he left. They just fired their coach today. I think it was today, maybe. Because he hadn't won a game. So, right. This is a different era of college football. It is a lot more difficult to hang on to your job even 2 years into it than it was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, you were probably afforded probably 3 years to get things turned around. Now it's instant gratification. If you can't do it, somebody else will bring somebody else in to do it.
Well, it's because of the transfer portal and paying players and that kind of thing. You can look at what Signetti's done in Indiana. I mean, Indiana was a perennial they just struggled constantly. They were just never really good. And 1 year in, he got him to playoff, and the 2nd year he's got him number 3 in the nation and has arguably one of the best wins of anybody this year.
Yeah.
Going on the road and beating Oregon, that doesn't happen every day. It doesn't happen.
Oregon had 23 straight conference wins.
Exactly. That's why it's so significant that
they hadn't lost a conference game in the Big Ten since they joined. Now, granted, it's just the 2nd year, but
right.
They ran the conference. They ran the table last year, and they looked like they were getting ready to do it again this year.
Yeah.
So that's a significant win. And
absolutely.
But again, we talked about that. That's the big donors can help you a lot. You can help turn things around a lot quicker when you've got big donors, because you can get the right players for your system. You can get the right players in to fix it quicker. You
Right.
know, and that's, like I said, that's where Wisconsin doesn't have the advantage that Indiana has. They just don't have the money that Indiana has. Not saying
But
that Wisconsin doesn't have money.
do you think
But
Michigan
not,
State has the donors to do that so that they could turn around and get, to turn
I don't know,
that
because
program around?
I don't know, because I feel like they're in the same kind of I feel like Michigan State's kind of in the same type of a boat as like an Iowa, where you've got to spread that out over the course of football and basketball, and you've got a basketball program that's perennially, top 10, top 15 in the country every year.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably spending more money on basketball than you would be on football. So do you have the extra funds? Again, that's where I say, like, Indiana has. Is Mark Cuban one of the big donors for Indiana?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, that right there is an unlimited money supply, basically.
Right. Right.
So we don't have that in Iowa. I don't think Michigan State has that. I could be wrong. I don't know who the big donors are there, but they don't have them like what Indiana has. That's why Indiana could, is potentially a sleeping giant in basketball as well. Get the right coach in, you get the right amount of money, you get start getting the right players. You're starting to see the Indianas of the '80s again. So I don't know. I just think that's why I say I think that's a possibility of him being gone, is just simply the fact that this landscape of college football is, what have you done for me lately?
Right.
And instant gratification. And if you don't do it 2 years, you're gone.
Right.
So,
Well, I don't know what their schedule looks like. I haven't looked at Michigan State's schedule, but I do know they have Iowa, and they do have to play Iowa in Iowa City late in the season, I believe, the second to the last game.
Yep.
And that's going to be a difficult game for that's going to be one of those weird games that could go both ways. Last year we thought we'd go into Michigan State and we thought we'd have a good enough team that we could beat them. Young quarterback, new coaching staff. We thought, well, this is definitely tilting in our favor. Yeah, it didn't turn out very good. So,
well, I think last year on paper the defense was better, but I think this year the defense is actually better by the sum of all parts. It's less about, like last year you had elite linebacking,
mm-hmm.
really decent, good defensive line play, and you had suspect secondary play. Now you've got good linebacking, you've got good defensive backfield, and you've got pretty elite defensive line play.
Mm-hmm.
So, the sum of the parts makes that a little bit better, but maybe not as good on paper. But I think they're a better defense than they were last year. And I think they've shown it.
Yeah. Just the stats will prove that out. There's no question about it. One thing we talked about Iowa earlier, and I want to go back to something that I thought was a little strange. Not strange, just kind of makes you kind of go, okay. Jeremy Hecklinski coming in second string. And I know that they were either or with Hank Brown when the two deeps were released. What was your thoughts on that? Did you like to see that, or were you a little confused by that?
I don't know that I really look a whole lot into that, just simply because it could have been a situation, you're up 37-0. Okay, well, let's give Hecklinski a chance. Throw him in there. He's been producing in practice. Let's see what he does in a live game situation, because we haven't seen it. Whereas we do know what Hank Brown has done in a live game situation. You've seen it, 3-4 games now, in bop-up duty mostly, or otherwise the outside of the Indiana game.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's a situation of, I want to see what it's like with these guys when live bullets are flying and it's not our own defensive backfield and defensive line and linebackers that know the plays. And just a simple matter of, I haven't had a chance to see him yet. I want to see what he can do. I don't know that I'm reading too much into it now. If, we go into, let's say we go into Penn State and Gronowski gets dinged up a little bit, can't go back out, and Hecklinski comes in, then I say you read into it.
Yeah.
But I just don't take a whole lot into that with, 3 snaps in mop-up duty. I just say It's probably just, he's busted his butt in practice. Let's give him some plays.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. I was going to say this is a reward for a good week of practice, and maybe he just had a little bit better week than Hank Brown. And they wanted, like you said, to take a look at him and see what he looked like under pressure. And obviously, 3 snaps is all he had, which is unfortunate. But he did throw 1 of 1 for 2 yards. Granted, it wasn't much, but he seemed like he wasn't lost. He made the right handoffs. He made the right throws. A very small sample size, so I'm going to kind of hold out judgment as to whether I think he's okay or not. And the reputation on him was that he was a gunslinger type, that he liked to throw the ball and liked to, I don't think when you're up 37-0, you're kind of mopping up, you're not going to let that kid go out and start throwing the ball around.
Right.
It's just common courtesy. And I know there's a lot of people that probably say, yeah, run it up when you can. And because that the other team would, but that's just never been Kirk's deal. He's never run it up on anybody. He's never been, I don't think there's anybody that could say, I think I accuse Kirk Ferentz of running the score up on us. And if they did that, I don't think they read the situation right.
The one thing I would go back to when we start talking about the passing numbers again, and this is another thing I'm kind of looking at more of that completions to incompletions more than I am yards. We're not getting yards after catch at all.
No.
And some of that's on the quarterback, some of that's on the receivers. So, you get a lot of these guys that may have some inflated stats, but think about how many guys that throw a little 5-yard slant and then a receiver breaks a tackle and goes for 50. Well, now you've got a 55-yard completion on a 5-yard completion. We're just not getting those broken tackles. We're not getting the yards after catch. If we start getting some yards after catch, those guys' offensive numbers look so much better. Yeah. But we're just not getting it. And I don't know if it's part of it might be the quarterback and putting it in a situation where they're not able to get the yards after catch. But, some of it is just like watching that game the other night. The routes were there. The guys were open. He made the right read. Defensive back was right there. And he puts the pop on him and the guy goes down. There's no broken tackles.
One of the things to it with that is I think a lot of times Iowa just wants to try to throw for the first down, and that's it. They just want to get the first down. So it's like 3rd and 6, 3rd and 5. They get a little sit-down route out about 6 yards, and they throw them the ball, knowing full well that we're just getting the first down. That's all we care about, just to move the chains, to get another opportunity to continue the possession. That's all it is, and it's a lot of that. And so when you talk about yards after catch, there's a lot of routes like that are not designed to get yards after catch. They're just designed to maintain possession, continue the drive, and that's all there is to it. Now, that happens a lot on 3rd down, and Iowa is a rush first defense or offense. That's the way they are. And so when, that's the main issue to me is that, yes, the stats could be a lot more gaudy and they could throw a lot further, but that's not how they do things. They do it to maintain possession, limit the risk, take smaller, don't make mistakes, and just take the little chunk stuff. Then that's exactly how you got to beat Iowa, is exactly what they do to beat teams. But the other teams they want to get greedy and try to make it all in one spot or one shot. Well, Indiana was able to do it successfully. Once. And some of the teams last year were able to do it. But that defense is designed to give up those. And so that's what they allow. The same thing going forward as with Iowa is that's what the offense basically has been built for, is the short, continue the possessions, eat up clock, that kind of thing. We've talked about this to ad nauseum. I mean, it's not nothing new. So that's why, they're just not designed for yards after catch.
Those passes are extended running plays. Keeps the clock running. And one of them that really kind of sticks out in my mind was it went for a completion for 2 yards and a first down, but it was the pass to Hayden Large where he turned upfield and fell.
Yep.
That's probably a 10, 12-yard gain.
Yeah.
That
8 to 10, yeah, for sure.
Ended up being a 2-yard gain because, he fell.
He was so surprised that he caught the ball that he fell down.
I still think he caught the one down there at the 4-yard line.
He didn't argue it.
Any reason why he didn't? Yeah, I don't know.
He didn't argue
I've watched it several times, and I still can't see where
Well,
if I would have called it a completed pass, I wouldn't have been able to overturn it.
well, that's the thing. You did. There was.
Yeah.
I didn't see a good angle
They
on
didn't even
any of it.
review it.
I know.
That's the thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they review everything.
Well, but if he'd have jumped up and yelled, I got it, instead of just basically dropping the ball and running back to the, I think that he didn't sell it very well, that he thinks he made the catch, which I don't think he did, but that's fine. We can go with that. But okay, let's get back on topic. We talked about the landscape of college football and some of the games and some of the things that we saw. We talked about,
Oregon and
Michigan State and UCLA. We talked about that. Let's talk about like Indiana, Oregon. Did that surprise you how easily they were able to win in Eugene?
Not surprised me how easily it was. I mean, I fully anticipated it to be a very competitive game. And, it's kind of like you said, with that, like the Maryland game. It wouldn't surprise you if Nebraska would have lost, but it wouldn't have surprised you if Nebraska would have beat them by 40.
Right.
That's one of those that it wouldn't have surprised me one bit if Indiana won, and it wouldn't have surprised me one bit if we're going to beat them by 20.
It was a good game. I did have that one highlighted, and I was geared up for that game, and I wanted to watch that game more than anything else in the whole day, except maybe Iowa, of course. But and it lived up to expectations for me.
Yeah.
I kind of expected that it would be a closer game, but yeah, like you said, it could have went either way. And here's one that's a little shocking: how the Old Miss struggled with Washington State. That was a 7-point game. They were a 30-some point favorite.
Yeah,
what's going on there? Did they just sleepwalk past them and expect to just didn't do any preparation or what?
I don't know what Mississippi has coming up next week, so it could just be
they could have been looking ahead.
Mm-hmm. I don't know because I don't pay attention to the SEC that much. I don't look
at the SEC either, but I don't know. Oklahoma getting just poleaxed by Texas, which surprised me that they didn't put up more of a fight. Now, I didn't expect Oklahoma maybe to. I don't think that I expected them to completely blow Texas out. I don't think they're geared that way this year.
I expected them to win.
I kind of expected them to be in the game at the end, and they really weren't. That's unfortunate. Because I'd like to see Texas. I'd like to see Texas just take their third loss and be thrown on the pile of the also-rans at this point.
Ole Miss is at Georgia.
There you go. So they were looking ahead.
Yeah,
they looked at Wazoo and said, "Oh, they're 2-3, and the two games the two games they won were against nobody, and the 3 games that they lost, they got blown completely out by Power 4 teams." And said, I think we can beat these guys pretty much blindfolded, and it ended up being a little struggle for them. Yeah. They did get it done, but it was a struggle.
Outside of that, I don't know that there was anything that really was overly surprising. Maybe
Penn State losing to Northwestern.
Yeah, we'll talk about that though. Michigan not showing up against USC.
Yeah, West Coast.
Outside of that, I don't know that there was a whole lot that surprised me. At Colorado beating Iowa State, maybe, but I've said that Iowa State puts a lot of emphasis on that Iowa game, and after that, anything can happen.
Well, they're wounded. They've lost their 2 of their starting defensive backs probably within like a few minutes of each other. Their kicker's not been healthy since Iowa. They're walking wounded. Yeah, and too bad he couldn't have got hurt in the first quarter of the Iowa game and then not been able to kick that 54-yarder. But
then that 6'8", 310-pound offensive lineman would just come out and done it and broke her heart. So who knows?
Not 55 yards or 54 yards. He wouldn't have. No, they wouldn't even have tried it. It was funny when they were talking about when they were showing the Iowa State. They were showing the field goal line for Iowa State. And most teams, it's like out at the 33, 34, 35-yard line. Yeah. This guy was at the 17. That's the line to get. Yeah, they weren't expecting anything more out of that than that. That was kind of funny. I kind of enjoyed that. I mean, it wasn't funny maybe at the time, but now you think about it and you're like, that is kind of funny when you think about it.
Well, here's an interesting thing, and I know somebody else has brought this up before. Iowa is Iowa State's best win, and Iowa State is Iowa's worst loss.
Yeah.
And in this portion of the season, Iowa is now receiving more votes in the top 25 than Iowa State in the coaches poll, not in the media poll. The media still has, I don't know, somebody was in there that was like, are you kidding me?
Here's my question here's my gripe with the poll. Why do you not have Washington in there? They've only got one loss, and that was to Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. That's the only loss they've had. Now, have they kind of struggled to win games? Yeah. I mean, they struggled to beat Maryland. And then last week, they only won by just a few points over. I don't remember who they played. Rutgers?
They beat Rutgers 34-19?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like.
But
and they struggled.
Same thing can be said, though, when you look at the fact that, okay, they ranked Nebraska. Nebraska just beat Maryland by 3.
Oh, sorry. I can't get the shut off, so.
Okay, well, I think I'm about done anyway. I think
we're all.
The point being is they ranked Nebraska 25th, and they just beat Maryland by 3. So
right.
I mean, you really, I don't know that I would put a whole lot in that. Say, well, Washington only beat them by 4? I think 28-24.
Yeah.
That. So,
I
think that's kind of a crime that but in essence, it has to be where we've got to make sure that we get as many SEC team ranked as possible, and in Nebraska's defense, I will give them this: Cincinnati being ranked ahead of you.
Yeah, after beating them.
Yeah, the only thing I can think there is maybe that the quality of their wins were better. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll see. Nebraska, to me, is one of those teams that they could end up 9-3, or they could end up 7-5. I think at this point. So
Nebraska has got a very, very favorable schedule this year.
They do.
So this is the year that they better win some games.
But it's one of those deals where when you think they're going to be good, and when you think they're going to do something, they usually end up falling on their face.
Yeah. Well, and we like to see that.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to argue with it.
All right. Well, I don't have anything else at this week. You have anything else?
No. Did you even want to mention the basketball?
No.
The scrimmage down in St. Louis?
No, because I don't have anything really on it. And I would basically go on and say that I take absolutely zero from those.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
If you're smart, you're trying different things. You're not going into it thinking, I'm going to win this game. I'm going to go in there and do everything possible to win this game. I mean, yeah, you want to win your scrimmages, but you also want to work on stuff that you don't have an opportunity to work on that you're going to face later on.
If you're a Hawkeye fan of basketball and you're sitting there thinking, oh my God, we just got poleaxed by St. Louis, I would take zero from this. Zero. This is a situation where, I think Ben McCollum just went in and said, I'm going to try a bunch of different lineups. I'm going to try a bunch of different guys at different places. And I'm just looking at them. I'm not looking at how we do. I'm more worried about, putting guys in situations and how they react. That's more what I'm worried about. I don't care how the game comes out. I'm worried about when the games, how the games come out when November 4th rolls around and they're playing their first game. That's when it matters. But at this point, just work on what you can work on and, gain an idea of what you need to do.
People were up in arms about, they gave up 99 points to St. Louis. That was in 3 halves too. It was a 60-minute
game
scrimmage. Yeah. It was not, your typical 40 minutes. So if you take that by a law of averages, that was 66 points. That's way better than a Fran McCaffrey defense. 99 points. Fran McCaffrey would give that up in 35 minutes, not 60.
Right.
And Bennett Sturts only played 32 minutes of that 60. So, if you're trying to win that game, he's probably playing 60 minutes.
59 and 15.
Yeah. So
Like,
again, I don't put any credence in it whatsoever. I hope they got out of it what they wanted to get out of it, which was guys in situations, see how different lineups work together. You learn that, oh, well, this lineup didn't work very good together. They couldn't score and they couldn't defend. So I'm not going
right.
to put that out there in the regular season.
Yeah.
I'd rather find out in a scrimmage game that doesn't matter with no fans than find
Mhm.
out in a game that matters and you throw it out there and you're like, well, that didn't work.
Yeah, I'm taking nothing from this. Absolutely nothing. I'm flushing it out of my mind. I'm not even thinking about it.
Yep.
November 4th. That's what matters.
Yep, absolutely. So, well, all right. As usual, if you like what you're hearing here, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Check us out on social media, all the usual spots. If you want to buy any gear, there's the link at the very beginning of the video to go to the merch shop. All the proceeds for that go to the Iowa Flight Fund. Any donations, any free advertising you can give us would be great too. We'd greatly appreciate that. Maybe we might write a promotion at the end of the year, or if we can start getting people to pop their names in when they subscribe. Maybe the 100th subscriber will get a T-shirt or something. So we'll figure something out. But appreciate the listening, and hopefully we got the audio situation taken care of. I didn't. I put a pop filter on my microphone, so I don't know if maybe it was partially my doing. Um, and I adjusted my volume levels on my mixer as well. So hopefully I got them taken care of. Uh, Let us know. Keep interacting. We appreciate that. And
Yes.
with that, we'll get out of here on a Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.